Okay, so our sales department focuses primarily on selling groups. They don't sell to individuals, okay? Groups can be business travelers, so people that are, they basically contract with a business to say, hey, you know what, Alamo colleges, you bring in guest speakers, you bring in people from other colleges to come and tour your campus. Why don't we set up a rate between you and us so that when somebody comes in, they can get the Alamo colleges rate, okay? So that would be the business travel. And then group travel is for people typically for whether it's tours or whether it is people traveling for a conference, coming in for a conference or a meeting at your hotel, okay? Smurf, I told you we talk about it here in just a moment. And so this is our moment has arrived. Smurf, S-M-E-R-F, that's not it. There's no R there. I don't know what smart is, but that's not correct. Let's do F. All right, Smurf. Oh, there is an R there. Sorry, y'all. Smurf. Social, military, educational, religious. There's no, let me start this over again. Everyone close your eyes and let's reset our clocks. 5 seconds and let's go back. Okay. Smurf is social, military, educational, religious, and fraternal. Okay. Social, bachelorette parties, family reunions, weddings. Those are social events. Okay. Military is self-explanatory. Educational is self-explanatory, right? That's why I qualify when I travel for tax exempt, because I'm an education institution, okay? So social, military, educational, religious, and F is fraternal, okay? Don't think fraternities and sororities, think fraternal as in fraternal organizations that share a common goal. So things like the VFW, the Lions Club, all those different types of fraternal organizations, okay? The one thing that a lot of these have in common is typically tax exempt, or they're on a budget. Typically have a little bit of a tighter budget, those Smurf groups. So when you have your sales office, there may be a salesperson that only handles Smurf, and one person that only handles business travel. There may be people even breaking up Smurf. So there may be someone who only focuses on social. That way they're focused on the same types of events. They're talking to the same types of guests, right? So with the sales planning, typically it starts out well in advance, okay? And we want to know what our group allocation is, okay? So with our group allocation, let's say we have 200 rooms in our hotel. Do I want to fill all 200 rooms with groups, or do I want to fill all 200 rooms with my leisure travelers? Okay, that's what allocation is. And we'll talk about that in just a second about why we want to mix up the business that we have, okay? The weekdays, who's typically traveling during the weekdays? Business, right? Who's typically traveling during the weekends? Family and leisure, right? So our business mix is going to be different, but then we also look at seasonality. So during the week, during Fiesta, we may have more leisure travel than we would have in, or spring break, than we would have maybe like in a week in February, right? And so our business mix is going to fluctuate based on what is the best way. How many of you have taken the revenue management class? Anybody take revenue financial management last semester in the spring? I don't think so. This is a prerequisite for that class. So that's good that nobody has taken it. We'll talk about that in revenue management. So typically when we are, let me get this out of the way. Okay, typically when we are working with groups, it's different from individuals because groups require a contract, okay? And they're gonna ask for what we call a room block. That room block is how many rooms we're gonna come and say, hey, you know what, we want, usually it's a minimum of 10 nights. And beyond that, it's gonna go to the sales office, okay? And that room block is basically gonna say, hey, anybody who's traveling for my family reunion or this wedding, they're gonna make a reservation that's gonna be under this room block, okay? Once those rooms are filled, it's filled. We can't add any more to that room block, okay? If the room block does not fill, that's what we're gonna talk about when we talk about attrition here in just 1 second, okay? So with sales, it's different from the regular guest reservation, but it's important because sales helps us fill those rooms when we don't have leisure travelers to fill our rooms. Sales is always going out looking for groups to have conferences, groups to have their meetings, groups to book, and large numbers of rooms, okay? So this is basically a colorful way of saying room blocks. Once we have that contract in place, okay, we have two different factors. We have the wash factor, we have this word attrition. Wash factor is the difference between what they said they're going to do and what actualized, okay? So if they said they're gonna fill 100 room nights, okay, they're gonna fill 100 room nights and they filled 90. Did they meet their contractual obligation? No, they're short by 10 rooms, right? So the wash factor is 10 rooms. Attrition is essentially most contracts, and now it depends, but most people allow for up to 20% attrition. And what that means is with attrition, if the group does not meet that certain threshold, we charge them for any rooms that are not used, okay? So if we have a 20% attrition, and they originally said 100 rooms, how many rooms is 20 rooms? 20%, I just told you the answer. 20 rooms, right? So that means they have to fill at least 80 rooms. Did they go above 80 rooms? If they actualize 90? Yes, right? So which means we're not going to charge them for anything. But if they had only actualized 75 rooms, how many rooms would I charge them for attrition? 5 rooms, right? My attrition is they got to get up to 80 rooms. They're short 5. I'm going to charge them for 5 rooms. And because why? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Because I, as a hotel, have been holding those 80 rooms in a room block, which means they're not accessible to my people walking in to see if they want to make a reservation or calling, right? They're set aside. And so closer to your meeting date, once I release those, what are the chances of me selling those rooms? I've been having them on hold off to the side for the whole time. If you don't meet that 80%, right, I can allow up to 20% attrition, meaning I'm not going to charge you. But if you go below that, then I'm going to actually charge you for that. Okay. Why is that important to know? Yeah. I mean, we're gonna charge that client, right? So let me give you an example. The conference that I went to up in 2017, 2017, I went to a conference in Dallas and we were going over the budget after the fact. And the association manager said, so I learned about this new thing called attrition. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's not a new thing. Second of all, what do you mean you just learned about this? You're our manager. Like, you should know that. So she signed a contract. We had to pay $6,000 in attrition because we quoted we were going to fill a certain room night. and we didn't meet it, and they charged us the $6,000 attrition. Okay, so if there's no communication between the salespeople and that client, that's why it's really important to understand looking at group history and all that kind of stuff, right? And so as those managers, those salespeople, they're looking, okay, you told me you're going to fill 100 rooms. You're only at 50. What do you need to do to get at least up to 80? So we're not have to charge you attrition. Do hotels like charging attrition? We don't, right? Because it puts a bad taste on the mouth, right? Of the client. They're like, I'm spending all this money, this $6,000 for nothing. Well, no, you're not spending it on nothing. You're spending it because you didn't meet the contract that you said you were going to meet. Okay. Yes.
Question. So about that. So let's say you have this conference, right?
Yep.
You pre-plan and everybody says they're able to go, right? They're going to fill all these rooms. And let's say a bunch of them get sick with COVID or the flu.
Yep.
So what do you then tell? I mean, how do you fix that? If you're like.
That's a conversation with the salespeople, right? And when COVID happened, that was not in the contracts. And so there was a lot of rewriting contracts and trying to make sure that you account for something like that. That typically, I mean, if there's a hurricane somewhere and most of your people are coming from Florida and they can't get out of the airports to get to your conference, well, that's an act of God that allows you to get out of some contractual obligations, right? So that's how you kind of get around that kind of thing. But I mean, there are some things you just cannot plan for. And so it really kind of just depends. All goes back to that contract. But I mean, if it's not a clause within the contract, then you're responsible for that. Yep. And it also affects our available rooms that we have to sell, right? Every time something's held up in a room block, somebody calls to make a reservation and you can say, oh, I'm so sorry, we're all out of kings, right? We only have doubles available. We're all out of kings because all my kings are held up in a room block. And then there's typically a cutoff date. So at some point, usually it's 30 to 60 days out from the conference, your cutoff date. If you don't meet that by that time, then we're going to charge that attrition. And we're going to release those rooms, which means that special room rate that you got for being part of the group, it's no longer available to your guests that are making reservations. They're going to have to book at the rate that is going at that time. It depends. It honestly depends on the situation. I mean, that's where it's kind of having a conversation with your meeting planner. And it also is the reputation of that meeting planner, right? So for example, I had a conference that I hosted here in San Antonio in 2022, and we didn't quite meet our room block. But because I was the one that was planning it, they were really forgiving and they were able to sell those rooms again. So it wasn't like the hotel was losing money. And so it kind of depends also on the reputation and the relationship you have. If it's a client that comes back every single year, then you may be a little bit more forgiving in those types of situations. Yeah. So once the cutoff date happens, anything that's not using that room block goes back into inventory and front desk can sell those rooms again. Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Shoulder dates, because nobody got this right on the free quiz. Okay. Shoulder dates, if you think about shoulder dates are the days in between. So let's say we have a meeting that goes Monday through Wednesday, and then we have the weekend, Friday through Sunday, okay? And then we have another meeting that starts on Tuesday and it goes until Thursday, okay? This day, Thursday, is considered a shoulder date in between, okay? Monday would be considered my shoulder date It's right in between. So as this group is checking out on Wednesday, I may have low occupancy on Thursday, and then it picks up again for the weekend, Friday through Sunday, right? And then on Monday, it's a lull again before my next group comes in on Tuesday. So what sales can do is they can look at those shoulder dates. Okay, our rate for this shoulder date on Thursday is $250. Okay, that's my rate for $250 for Thursday. This group, you have a contracted rate of $185. If I have low occupancy on this day, I can tell my group, hey, you know what? If you want to extend one day and check out on Thursday or check out on Friday, stay Thursday night, we'll give you that rate of 185. Okay, or we may do a special where people are coming in, start your weekend early, or vice versa. This meeting starts on Tuesday. Why don't we give you that shoulder date of whatever the rate is? It encourages people to come in early or stay later. Okay, so we can work with sales to get that shoulder days occupancy more flexible rather than having occupancy that goes like this and then dips and then goes up again and then dips. We want to try to keep our occupancy, if possible, as steady as possible. A nice little steady line, okay? Versus lots of big dips. Those dips are the shoulder dates in between times of occupancy. Questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So you may even, hey, we have a wedding coming in on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, or like a weekend wedding party. Tell your guests, hey, you know what? If they want to give that special rate, they can come in on Thursday. That way there's no stress of travel on Friday. So types of reservations that we have guaranteed and non-guaranteed. Okay. What is the difference between a guaranteed and a non-guaranteed reservation? Any thoughts? Well, yes, that they'll know what the rates are going to be for sure. What else? It has to do with payment. Okay. I don't want to say necessarily, I want to say payment in general because guaranteed could be prepaid or it could just be a card on file to hold it. So that way, if you don't show up for that, if the guest does not show up for that reservation, we can at least usually typically we'll charge them one night's room and tax. So whatever the first night room and tax is, if they don't show up for that reservation, we're going to charge them at least that one, and then we'll release the rest of it. Okay. But places like resorts typically require either a prepayment in full or a partial payment like a deposit. And so that's what guaranteed, meaning up until 4 o'clock, if it's a non-guaranteed reservation at normal check-in time at 4 o'clock, we're going to release that back into our inventory. It's not guaranteed. But if you have a method of payment established attached to your card, then we're going to guarantee that we have a room for you. Okay. So if you don't get in until 10 o'clock at night, that's okay. We're going to hold a room for you until 10 o'clock because we know you have that method of payment on there. Okay. So 2 types of reservations. We talked about this in the last chapter. So our name, address, email address, telephone number. If there's a company that's paying for it, we need to know that information. We got date of arrival. We covered those. Types of rooms, the room rate, number of people, method of payment, and then any special requests. I think this is only one of the ones that we missed off of our checklist from the previous chapter. Questions about reservation information? Yes.
Not necessarily that, but I remember this one time we stayed with all.
Okay.
Of course, when I was younger, I don't know, I made them late, and so we got into Galveston. Our room was actually sold out.
Okay.
And but because of that, I actually ended up getting them a nicer room for no extra charge. And we ended up getting like a super suite above, like a condo, but it was like one of those luxury condos for like no extra cost. And so I was wondering like how something like that would work, you know?
Yeah.
We're until, 10 o'clock with that payment. If
Yeah.
You don't,
That's a great question. So what you experience, a concept we call walking a guest. So we've walked them to a different property or to maybe a different area. And so what happens is sometimes we are oversold. Okay. Airlines do it all the time, right? We have 300 seats on that plane. I'm going to sell 304 tickets because I'm going to bank on the fact that 4 people are not going to show up. So same things happen in hotels. We may be at 102% occupancy, meaning that we're going to, and it's not, we're going to do it all the time, right? We may not be oversold during spring break, but if it's a time that look at historical data that we notice that, oh, this time we usually have about 5 to 6 people no show, then we may go ahead and try to, because as the goal of the hotel is to be at 100% occupancy, to be sold out. And so if you sell exactly 100% and then you have 2 no shows, then you're not sold out anymore. So sometimes we bank on that. We plan to play the we risk it to see, right, if we can get up to that 100%. Now you have to walk a guest, yeah. And when you walk a guest, that guest does not pay for anything when you walk them to the other hotel, right? You have to take care of that guest. Now it may be that you are walking a guest and they got to come back the next day. Like maybe it's just today you're sold out, but tomorrow we'll have their room back available, right? You pay for any transportation expenses. So if they have to take a cab or an Uber, you pay for them to go there. And so walking a guest is something that hotels do. There was something else that you said that I was.
well, see, it wasn't a separate like condo. It was part of their hotel, but
Yeah.
they put us in their restaurant.
Yeah, you got upgraded to it. Yeah. So were you at the San Luis Hotel and you got to stay in the little cabana, the little guest houses? Oh, they had the condos next door. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. So that's like a great example of having a relationship with that condo specifically. Like there's a lot of hotels that they'll have a relationship with the hotel next door. You think it's a different brand, same ownership. And so they're really kind of just moving you from one hotel to the next, right?
Mhm.
So in that case, that's exactly what they'll do. They're going to do that to kind of accommodate for the fact that they don't have a room available for you. Yeah. And so oftentimes too, like right now, if you check in on the apps, I know you can check in and say what time you're going to arrive. So if my flight doesn't get in till 9, I'm going to put that I'm not going to get there till 10. Because if I put that I'm going to get there at 5 and it's 10 o'clock and I'm not there yet, they're going to be like, oh, he's probably not coming today, right? I had another situation. I had some friends. We were at a New Year's Eve party, and they were staying at the Hyatt home. No, what's the Hyatt Place on the Riverwalk, right? And we were at our friend's condo across the river, and they're like, "Oh, we're staying at that hotel tonight." And I was like, "Oh, cool. This is like 8 o'clock." I'm like, "Have you checked in?" They're like, "Oh no, we're just gonna walk over after midnight." And I'm like, you probably should call and let them know you're going to be there after midnight. They're like, that's okay. We have a guaranteed reservation. They have our credit card on file. They'll have a room for us. I got on the phone. I'm like, hey, look, I'm on this reservation, but this is the name. And because I know after they've been drinking all day and it's New Year's Eve, they are expecting to have a room. There could be a potential altercation. So I'm going to save some stress, and can you please just make sure that you keep that room vacant for them? And they were very appreciative of that, because I'm sure they get that quite a bit, especially like on a holiday type thing. So yeah, if you know you're going to be late, it's always a good idea to call. Distribution channels we talked about is how we get our rooms, how we get our inventory out to our guests. Okay, they can come directly to us via our website, via the app, via calling. I think the textbook still talks about faxing. I don't think people fax for hotel reservations anymore. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe it's like a travel agent thing. But I'm not familiar with anybody who faxes or sends their reservation in the mail. We also have central reservation systems. So basically call centers that you can call, and it's typically like for the brand Marriott, Hyatt, they can sell all different types of hotels. Affiliate and non-affiliate deals with whether you're affiliated with a brand or it's an independent. GDS is an IDS, global distribution system. A GDS is what travel agents are going to use. Okay, it's what they have access to for airlines, rental cars, cruises, hotels, all that kind of stuff. Internet distribution systems is the normal person. Okay, so how we distribute things through the internet. What are some ways people make hotel reservations through the internet? Booking.com, Expedia, Kayak. Okay, all of those what we call third-party sites, and not all third-party sites are created equally. Okay. Whenever we look at people calling our hotels, we can say, yes, we have availability. We can accept the reservation, or no, we don't have any availability. We don't have the ability to accommodate you. We're sold out. Okay. Or, and we'll get into a little bit later in revenue management, there's specific ways that we can put on somebody has to stay 3 nights minimum, right? Same thing like the example I gave earlier with my friend in the Final Four. They don't want somebody to just come and make reservation for 1 night, and those other 3 nights they can't sell for somebody who wants to book all 4 nights. They may be sold out on 1 night, but they could make the other accommodation. So they typically will put minimum night stays on that. Okay. If we're sold out, suggest an alternative hotel. Unfortunately, we don't have this available, but you might check out this hotel. Okay. This can happen in a walk-up situation where somebody walks in and that doesn't have a reservation at all. It could happen on the phone. Typically online, you're going to see whether the rooms are available or not. Unless there's a glitch in the system, like my friend's hotel who opened, and the opening Valentine's Day, opening weekend, and Expedia oversold them by 350%. So they have 150 rooms, and Expedia sold like 400 rooms. Like, it didn't make sense at all. But it's really important that you're looking at those reservations to prevent overbooking, and also changing your rate. Okay, so that goes back into revenue management, which we'll talk in a later chapter. Why is confirmation and cancellation numbers, why are they important? For proof, right? So proof that I have a reservation, here's my confirmation number, but cancellation numbers are just as important, because if you get charged for the first night room and tax as a no-show, and you can show that you have a cancellation number, then you can basically backtrack that charge, right? You can dispute that charge. Confirmation numbers are also really important. When I worked at La Quinta downtown, we were La Quinta Inn and Suites, and there was La Quinta Inn at Market Square, literally like a block and a half away from us. And so people would come in and they're like, they see La Quinta and they come with a reservation number, and I'm like, I don't have that confirmation number. And so as a front desk agent, I got on the phone a lot and called their hotel and be like, hey, do you have this person checking in? Yep, you do. Okay, send you over there that way. So having that confirmation number, it also is helpful if you have a confirmation number, because sometimes people misspell names. Sometimes people are taking reservations over the phone and they're typing a name in wrong. Sometimes people type in their own name wrong, right? And so having that confirmation number allows you to look up that reservation. Okay. Let's see, expected arrivals and departure lists. So this is a list that is prepared for everyone who's expected to arrive the next day and depart the next day. Now you can look at this on a regular basis. It's not like you're just gonna look at the day before, okay? So that way it helps with staffing. If I know I'm gonna have all 300 of my rooms checking out, and I'm gonna have all 300 rooms checking in the same day, flip the house. That means I need to have staffing. I need to have people at the front desk to check out and check in. But if I only have 50 reservations coming in, do I need to have a fully staffed front desk? Probably not. I probably have just one person handle 50 reservations that are going to arrive for the day. So understanding what that arrival is going to be that reservations that we have, it allows us to make that planning for scheduling, okay? Common errors that we see, industry jargon. So we just talked about in the last chapter, connecting, adjacent, adjoining. Okay, so industry jargon, they may make some errors in there. If there is any kind of technology outage and we no longer get the reservations from central reservation systems, or any kind of failure, maybe somebody didn't actually hit submit to book their reservation. So all these different things will happen. We got to make sure we accommodate those guests as they come in. So let's talk about e-commerce, basically things that happen online, okay? It gives us an opportunity to spread out our inventory. So I'm just not relying on people coming to check in at my hotel or people calling my hotel. I can send it out to a lot of different areas, okay? So we have 4 different types. We have the merchant model and wholesale model, and then we have opaque and transparent sites. We'll talk about each one of these and how it impacts the hotels. Not everything is created equally, okay? Typically, when we're talking about e-commerce, we're talking about these third party, okay? Third party. You'll hear that terminology very, very regularly, third party sites. It means they're not booking directly with us, okay? And typically that comes with a fee of some sort. It may be a percentage off. It may be a commission fee. So we'll talk about that with our wholesale and merchant market merchants here in just a second, okay? So the wholesale model. Typically, let's start with merchant model. Merchant model, it's a percentage markup, okay? And the people who are operating on the merchant model, they typically will rank whoever's going to give them the best deal. So when you do a search for a hotel, when I was working with La Quinta, I literally, one of my jobs for the front desk in the morning was to get on Orbitz and figure out where our hotel was in the ranking. Because how many times do people actually go past page 2 or 3? Very rarely, right? Very lucky if you get on to page 2. And so I had to track and see where we were on that. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to basically give them they're going to sell our rooms at a markup rate. So 30% markup, 10% markup, whatever, okay? And so the hotels that are going to give them a 30% markup, they're going to want to list first because it gives them the company a better deal, okay? Whereas the wholesale model, we sell it at a specific rate. So let's say wholesale, we need to get people in our hotel, right? We might sell our wholesale at $50 to a third party site. And then they can charge whatever they want. And we're going to get $50 for that reservation. Okay. And so it's important because that allows us to be able to sell and guarantee a specific rate, a specific dollar amount that we're going to get. So let's do an example real quick. If my rate, I'm going to use $100 just because I want to keep it simple. My rate's $100, okay? In a wholesale model, I can sell that for $80, and that wholesaler is going to get $20, right? If they sell it for $100. I'm sorry, let me back up for a second. I'm going to sell it for $80. They could sell it for $150. They could do whatever they want. They could sell it for whatever rate they want, and they'll get the difference of $80. I still get $80 from that 100, right? If my rate is 100. In the percentage markup, if I have to pay like a 30% commission rate, what is 30% of $100? $30. That means I'm only going to make $70 off of that hotel room. The guest is still going to pay $100, but I'm only going to get $70. So the best way is for guests to book directly with us. We get 100% of that revenue, right? Now, one way, because you don't want to have a situation where your rate on your website is one rate and on a third party site, it's a cheaper rate. Because why? People would just go to the third party site, right? So you want to kind of keep it the same or as close as possible to the same. So in this case, we have opaque sites. Opaque means you can't see through it, right? So opaque means that the brand, you don't know what that brand is. You might have a 3-star hotel in San Antonio downtown. You don't know what brand it is, but they're going to sell it to you for $60. And so if you like the risk of not knowing where you're going to be sleeping, then you might choose to go, hey, you know what, $60, I'm going to save myself $40. And instead of paying $100, I'm going to pay $60 for a hotel, and maybe I'll get lucky and get this hotel that I want. Great, bless you. If not, then with that opaque site, oftentimes you can't see. So let's take a look at an opaque site real quick. And before I do this comment of rate parity. So rate parity just basically means the rates are similar on a third-party site as our site. So which means I can sell it to hotwire.com for a cheaper price, and I'm still going to protect that integrity of our rate state looking the same, because people don't know, they're not specifically booking my hotel. So let's take a look at that.
And then they get half that profit, and then you only get half that profit. So
yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. And so I thought it was really interesting. Hotwire is one of the most common opaque sites. Along those same lines, Leah, I thought it was really interesting. During the pandemic, a lot of people went to Uber Eats. What's the other one? DoorDash, right? And then all of a sudden, people were like, "Oh my gosh, don't do DoorDash because the restaurant doesn't make that much money." I'm like, "Hello, we've been doing this with hotels forever. Like, why are you just now freaking out about it because it's a restaurant thing?" That's the cost of doing business. And so that convenience is really something that we have kind of trained our guests. That's why a lot of companies will have frequent rewards programs, because that encourage you. You can't get those points unless you book directly with the property or with the hotel, right? And so let's say, where do we want to go? What city? Y'all are like all about Las Vegas. I've been a couple of times. It wasn't my thing. That's okay. Okay, Las Vegas, and let's say we're gonna go October. Here we go. Find a hotel. Okay. So you see here, opaque. It's a 4.5-star casino hotel. I don't know what it is. I don't know what brand it is. But hey, I'm saving quite a bit of money from that, right? So you can check the area. This is actually nicer because before it didn't matter. Like, you just booked a hotel. Now you can actually kind of select areas that will tell you 3.5-star hotel, 2.5-star hotel. Okay. Some of them do allow you to book like a specific brand, but you can see they're a little bit higher than those discounted rates where you don't know what hotel you're going to get. So that's the opaque sites. And that allows you to prevent, and you don't know what the hotel is until after you've paid, right? You pay it, and then you get an email that says you're staying at this hotel. You're like, I'm glad I'm staying at this hotel. I don't know, like, or, oh, I don't like that hotel, but too bad, you already paid for it. It's non-refundable. Okay. We're going to Vegas. We're taking a gamble. We're gambling. We're risking. Which hotel we're going to stay in. Okay. But you can look to see, you can go, I mean, it goes even down into these smaller areas of where you want to stay. Okay. So that's opaque sites. Yes.
and then they're relying on trying to sell it on their own.
Well, so in that opaque site, we're already charging, they're buying our inventory. They've already paid for the room.
So whether or not they sell the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why we get to basically unload what we call distressed inventory. We don't think we're going to sell it, so I'd rather sell it for this amount and some revenue for it, and guarantee that, versus the merchant model, that's where we have an agreed upon markup, or an agreed upon like percentage commission that we're going to pay. So they're not pre-purchasing those hotel rooms from us. They're just giving them the ability to make those reservations, and then we're going to pay whatever if our rate is 100 and our agreed upon is 30%, then that means the guest has paid 100 through their website, but when it comes down to it, we're only going to pay that website $70. Yeah, exactly. It's their commission. That's how they make their money, is on those reservations. Samantha, do you have a comment? So Hotwire is actually part of Expedia. It's their opaque site, which I think I didn't realize that until a long time ago. But the difference is, so on Expedia, our hotel could be $100, and in our website, it would be $100, right? But let's say we're getting close to it and we just want to dump, let's say we want to get $50 for our hotel rooms. We may sell those rooms. So they've actually paid that $50. We're going to get that guaranteed revenue from those $50 for those room nights that we sold them, versus the percentage markup on their website. They only get paid if we only charge them if we sell a room through their reservation. But the opaque sites, they're purchasing all of those reservations. Yeah. And so that protects us to where if we're selling it for $50, they may go back and sell it on their Hotwire for $75, right? And that protects us from the guests walking in and saying, look, on Expedia, I see your room is $75. On your websites, it's $100. Why don't you give it to me for $75? So that by putting it on those opaque sites, it protects that rate parity, that comparison. And then transparent sites are things like Expedia, Kayak, Orbitz, where you actually know the brand, you know the specific hotel that you're making reservations for. And that's typically where you're going to see that rate parity of things are going to be looking the same. All right. 3 minutes. We're not going to attempt chapter 5 in 3 minutes. So what I will do is I will get chapter 5 quiz. I will update the due date and we will add it to our, we'll do chapter 5 week after next. So next week on the 12th, we're going to be at the bed making competition. Okay. I will arrive as early as 9 o'clock, and we'll be doing things like stuffing the swag bags, setting up the arena, and things like that. So if you want to get there earlier than 10:45, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, from 10:45 to 1:30 is the expectation. If you need to leave a few minutes early, that's fine to get back to campus. You get another class afterwards. But the expectation is that we're there from 10:45 to 1:30. I will have pizza for us to eat for lunch. I'm doing pepperoni and cheese. I'll have sodas. I think I'm doing Coke and Sprite and bottled water. So I'll have that there for you. And then if you want to stay afterwards, the competition goes until about 3:30, 4 o'clock. I do have to leave. I have a meeting at Natural Bridge Caverns, I think at 3:30. So I'll probably have to leave about 3 o'clock to get up to Natural Bridge Caverns for a board meeting. But I'll be there up until that point. Okay. I'm really excited. The theme is Disney. You're welcome to dress in theme if you would like to. You don't have to. You can come casual, jeans, polo shirt. If you're wearing shorts, please make sure they're an appropriate length. They're not too short. I like to wear either a polo shirt or a St. Philip's College t-shirt, or you can wear this like a blue t-shirt for St. Philip's, just something to kind of stick together. All right. Any questions? I'll put all that in the announcements. Yep. Thank you all so much. I'll see you next week on Thursday.